Sharon stood on the bright stage, her smile perfect under the glaring lights. In her hands were the fragile letters I had written years ago, each one a raw confession of my love for her. With each word she read, the audience laughed louder, feeding on my pain like hungry wolves. She twisted my words into comedy, mocking the emotions I once bled onto paper for her. "Listen to this one," she giggled, pausing for dramatic effect. He wrote, "Even if the stars fade, my love for you will shine brighter in the darkness." The crowd roared with laughter, the echo of my humiliation bouncing off the walls. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and my heartbreak went viral within minutes. I stood frozen at the back of the hall, unable to move, unable to breathe. Those letters were never meant for anyone else's eyes. They were private, sacred, a reflection of a love I had foolishly believed was mutual. But to Sharon, they were nothing more than entertainment, a tool to boost her popularity. The betrayal burned through my veins like fire. As the applause erupted once again, my fists clenched. The girl I once loved had just stripped me bare before the world. My pride was shattered, my dignity stomped on. But in that moment of humiliation, something inside me awoke. If she wanted the world to hear my words, so be it. But they would hear them from me, not through her twisted performance. They would hear the real story, the story of how I loved, how I was broken, and how I would rise. My heart no longer ached with love. It burned with purpose. Before Sharon became the woman who humiliated me on that stage, she was everything I ever dreamed of. We met in college during our freshman year. She was radiant even then, drawing attention with her charm, her confidence, the way she lit up every room without even trying. I was nothing like her. While she thrived in crowds, I preferred the quiet corners of the library, my world filled with words and pages, where emotions flowed easier on paper than through my voice. Our paths crossed in the most unexpected way. Sharon needed help with her literature assignments. Someone had told her I was good with words. She found me at my usual table, notebook open, lost in my own world. She approached with that signature smile, and for a moment I thought she was lost. But she knew exactly who she was looking for. "John, right? I heard you're a genius with words. I need a little help." Her voice was sweet, disarming. I barely managed to nod, words sticking to my throat. That simple request led to long afternoons spent together, going through poetry, analyzing stories, sharing perspectives. Over time, our conversations drifted beyond books. She opened up about her dreams of becoming a performer, a comedian who could make people laugh, someone unforgettable. I shared my secret world of writing, the poems, the short stories, and eventually the letters I never intended anyone to read. She became my muse. Every emotion she stirred in me I poured into those letters. They weren't just words, they were my heart, sealed in envelopes and handed to her quietly after every meeting. She always accepted them with a soft smile, never saying much, but her eyes held something I mistook for affection. I convinced myself she cherished them, even if she never said the words out loud. Our relationship was undefined. There were no confessions, no promises, just a growing closeness I clung to. Whenever she laughed at my jokes, leaned closer to read my notes, or called late at night just to talk, I believed it meant something. I never questioned why she never called me her boyfriend. I was too deep in the illusion. Years passed, and as graduation approached, Sharon's ambitions took flight. She started performing at open mic nights, slowly building a following. Her charm, combined with sharp humor, quickly caught the attention of bigger venues. I watched from the sidelines, always supportive, always proud. Whenever she felt nervous before a show, I was the one she called. When she had doubts, I was there to reassure her. I never stopped writing. The letters kept coming, even as her fame grew. They became a ritual, each one capturing my feelings, my hopes, my silent prayers that one day she would see me as more than just a friend. She kept them all, carefully stored, or so I thought. Not once did she tell me they were a burden or that she found them silly. I believed she valued them as much as I valued her. But as her success skyrocketed, something between us shifted. Sharon became distant, harder to reach. Calls went unanswered, texts remained unread. When we did meet, it was brief, rushed, always surrounded by others. Still, I held on, convincing myself she was just busy, that this was temporary. Then came that night. The event was grand, a full house, cameras flashing, celebrities mingling. Sharon was the headline act. I stood among the audience, smiling like a fool, excited to see her perform. She stepped onto the stage, glowing with confidence, the crowd already chanting her name. I was so proud, until she reached for the box. My box. She opened it with a flourish, pulling out the letters I had written over the years. The ones that held my deepest feelings, my most vulnerable words. I didn't understand at first. I thought maybe it was part of a heartfelt story she planned to share, maybe to finally acknowledge what I meant to her. But then she started reading. Mocking. Twisting my words into punchlines. The audience laughed harder with every sentence, their amusement growing with her performance. She didn't spare a glance towards me. My confessions became entertainment. My love became a joke. Standing there, I felt everything I had ever given her disintegrate. The trust, the admiration, the silent devotion, it all turned to ash. I was humiliated, betrayed by the very person I trusted most. That night, Sharon's spotlight shone brighter than ever, and I stood in the shadows, invisible, broken. The applause still rang in my ears as I stumbled out of the venue. The cool night air did nothing to numb the sting burning in my chest. Every face I passed seemed to be laughing, whispering, mocking. Their voices weren't loud, but in my mind they were deafening. I had given Sharon my heart, and she had ripped it open for the world to see. I wandered aimlessly through the streets, my thoughts spiraling. How long had she seen me as a joke? Were all those quiet nights, all those intimate conversations nothing but material for her routine? I had believed we shared something real. Clearly, I had been alone in that belief. My phone buzzed endlessly. Messages poured in. Some were from friends who didn't know what to say. Others were from strangers, amused by my public humiliation. Screenshots of Sharon's performance flooded social media, her face lighting up every headline, her name trending for all the wrong reasons. I turned off my phone and kept walking, trying to escape the suffocating weight pressing on my chest. The image of Sharon smiling as she read my letters haunted me, each word she twisted playing on a loop in my head. I couldn't understand how she could do this. Was I really nothing more than an easy laugh? Hours passed before I finally made it home. I sat in the dark, staring at nothing. That was when Ruth called. She didn't say much at first. She didn't need to. Ruth had always been the kind of person who listened before speaking. When I finally told her what happened, her voice remained steady, grounding me. John, you trusted the wrong person, but you don't have to let her control your story. I laughed bitterly. What story? I was just some fool who kept writing letters she never wanted. That's where you're wrong. Ruth's voice sharpened, filled with quiet determination. Those letters, they were honest, pure. You put your soul into them. She mocked them because she never understood their value, but others will. I didn't respond. The thought of anyone else reading those letters made my stomach turn. They were too personal, too raw. John, Ruth continued, her tone softening. You're not the punchline, you're the author. Take back control. Let the world read your words the way they were meant to be read, not as comedy, as truth. Her words planted a seed I hadn't expected. At first, it felt impossible. But as the days passed, that seed grew. Ruth kept checking in, encouraging me. She even offered to help edit the letters into a collection. Meanwhile, Sharon's career soared. The viral clip landed her more shows, interviews, sponsorships. Every time I saw her face on a billboard or her voice on TV, the sting returned. But alongside the pain, something else began to rise inside me, a quiet resolve. Ruth came over one evening with her laptop and a stack of my letters, carefully organized and formatted. I took the liberty of starting, she said with a small smile. I know you're not ready yet, but I also know you will be. Seeing my words laid out like that with care and respect was overwhelming. They no longer felt like wounds. They felt like art. People will relate to this, John, Ruth said gently. You've captured something real. Love, vulnerability, heartbreak, everyone felt it. You're not alone. The more I read through the letters, the more I saw what she meant. Yes, they were written for Sharon, but they spoke to something universal, the fear of loving someone who doesn't love you back, the hope that someday they might, the pain of realizing they never will. We worked together for weeks. Late nights filled with coffee, soft music playing in the background, Ruth's quiet voice guiding me through edits, helping me shape the collection. She never pushed too hard, always knowing when to let me breathe. During those nights, I started to see Ruth differently. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about the project. The way she always believed in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself. She was everything Sharon had never been: steady, kind, patient. The manuscript was finally complete. We titled it Letters I Never Should Have Written. Ruth handled the publishing details, and before I knew it, the book was out in the world. At first, I expected nothing, but something unexpected happened. People connected with it. The reviews were overwhelming. Readers praised the raw honesty, the vulnerability, the beautiful pain within the words. What Sharon mocked as comedy became something that touched people deeply. As sales soared, interviews started pouring in for me. My name, once associated with humiliation, was now tied to something meaningful. I had taken back my story. And Sharon, she stayed silent. The viral clip of her reading my letters resurfaced, but this time the public saw it differently. The comments shifted from laughter to criticism. How could she mock something so personal? This isn't funny, it's cruel. John turned his pain into art. She turned it into a joke. The balance had shifted, but the story between Sharon and me was far from over. The success of the book should have felt like victory. People praised my words, saw my pain, respected my honesty. But behind the interviews and rising sales, my heart carried a weight I couldn't shake. Every time someone complimented me, every time a reader thanked me for sharing something so personal, I smiled politely. But when the cameras turned off, I was left alone with the same question: why did she do it? Sharon and I had not spoken since that night. She never called, never reached out. It was as if she had erased me from her life completely. But in every interview I watched of hers, there was a shadow in her eyes, a flicker that suggested she couldn't ignore what had happened, no matter how hard she tried to hide it behind her perfect smile. I wanted to be free of her. I wanted to stop caring, but I couldn't. She had been my first love, my muse, my everything for so long. How do you cut something like that out of your chest and pretend the scar isn't there? The nights were the worst. When the world was quiet, the memories returned. The way she used to lean on my shoulder while we studied. The way her laughter used to light up the small coffee shop where we spent hours dreaming about the future. I had memorized every little detail about her, and now those memories haunted me like ghosts. Ruth saw it, though I tried to hide it. She never pressured me, but her eyes carried a quiet sadness whenever she found me lost in thought. "You're allowed to grieve, John," she said softly one evening as we sat on my balcony. The city lights blinked below us, but my gaze was fixed on nothing. "It's not grief," I whispered. "It's anger, it's disappointment, it's shame." She placed her hand gently over mine. "It's all of it, and it's okay." I closed my eyes, breathing in the cool air. I don't understand how she could be so cruel. I trusted her with everything, and she turned it into a show. Ruth said nothing for a moment, letting the silence hold my words. "Some people only know how to love themselves, John." She was never capable of seeing how much she meant to you because she was always too busy looking at her own reflection. Her words made sense, but they didn't ease the ache. Weeks turned into months. The book's success continued to grow, but my internal struggle only deepened. The world saw me as strong, as someone who turned pain into art. But inside, I still battled the hollow space Sharon left behind. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. I received an email. It was from Sharon. "John, I've read your book." That was all it said. No apology, no explanation, no remorse. Just 6 words that reopened every wound I had tried to stitch shut. I stared at the screen for hours, my mind spinning. Why now? Why even reach out if she had nothing to say? Was it guilt? Jealousy? or just another way to remind me that she still held space in my head. I didn't reply. Days later, I saw her name trending again, but not for her comedy. The media had uncovered her viral performance from months ago and linked it to my book. The backlash was growing. People were angry at her. Sponsors dropped her. Venues canceled her shows. The same public that once laughed with her now turned on her. I watched it unfold with a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. This was what she deserved, wasn't it? And yet, seeing her fall didn't bring the relief I thought it would. Instead, it reminded me that even revenge couldn't fix a broken heart. Ruth stood by my side through it all. She was my anchor when my emotions threatened to pull me under. But even with her there, I sometimes caught myself looking at old pictures, wondering what might have been if Sharon had chosen differently. One night after another interview, Ruth waited for me outside the studio. As we walked to my car, she spoke quietly. "John, you need to let her go." "I know," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. "She still controls you even now, not because you love her, but because you're trapped in what she did to you." I stopped walking, turning to face her. How do I let go of someone who tore me apart? Ruth's eyes softened. By choosing someone who would never tear you apart, by choosing peace over pain. Her words struck deeper than I expected. She wasn't just talking about Sharon. She was talking about herself, about us. I had been so blinded by my pain that I hadn't seen what was right in front of me. Ruth had been there from the start. She never mocked me, never judged me. She saw my worth long before the world did. And yet I had kept her at arm's length, too afraid to fully open my heart again. In that moment, I realized that maybe the real conflict wasn't with Sharon anymore. It was with myself. The knock on my door came late one evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I opened it, the sight froze me. It was Sharon. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked different, tired, almost fragile. The confident glow she always carried was gone, replaced by something raw, something painfully human. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She stood awkwardly in my living room, glancing around like she didn't recognize the space anymore. But what unsettled me more was how unfamiliar she herself felt. "I've read your book," she finally said, eyes darting toward mine, then quickly away. "I know," I replied coldly. "You emailed me." She swallowed hard. "I didn't know how else to say it. I've read every word, John, every single word. I never realized how much I hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't realize? You stood on a stage and read my soul like it was a cheap script. You laughed with them. You let them humiliate me." "I never meant for it to go that far," she whispered. "At first it was just, I thought I was being funny. I didn't think anyone would care that much." "That's because you never cared, Sharon." Her face twisted with guilt, but she didn't deny it. She took a shaky breath and stepped closer. "I've lost everything, John. The shows, the sponsors, my reputation is ruined. People hate me now." The words hung in the air between us. I watched her, waiting for the point. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. "Why are you here, Sharon?" Tears filled her eyes, but I remained still. "Because even after everything, you're the only person who really knew me, the real me, and I miss you." The audacity of her words struck something deep inside me, a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and disbelief. "You miss me?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "You destroyed me. You used my love to build your career, and now you come here because you want comfort." Her tears finally fell. I was stupid. I thought making people laugh would fill the emptiness I felt, but it didn't. The emptiness only grew, and now, seeing you succeed, seeing people love you for the words I once mocked, it made me realize what I threw away. I shook my head, clenching my jaw. "You didn't throw me away, Sharon. You never chose me in the first place. You chose attention. You chose applause." Her lips trembled as she tried to steady herself. Is it too late? She whispered. Can we? No, I cut her off. It's too late. Her face crumbled at my words, but I felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Before she could speak again, another knock came. Ruth. Sharon's eyes widened as Ruth stepped inside, holding a manuscript in her hands. She stopped when she saw Sharon standing there. I didn't realize you had company, Ruth said softly, glancing between us. Sharon straightened herself, trying to mask the vulnerability she'd just shown. I was just leaving. She walked past Ruth without another word, her perfume lingering in the air like the last trace of a memory I no longer wanted to hold. Once the door closed behind her, Ruth remained silent for a moment, reading my face. Are you okay? She finally asked. I nodded, though my chest felt tight. I'm done chasing ghosts, Ruth. Her eyes softened, and she placed the manuscript on my coffee table. Then let's focus on what's ahead. As I sat down beside her, the weight of the past slowly began to lift. For the first time, I felt the chains Sharon had wrapped around me finally loosen. The second twist was Sharon's return. It was my decision to finally close that door. For good. Weeks passed after Sharon's unexpected visit. The media slowly lost interest in her fall from grace, but my book continued to climb, reaching international markets. What started as a way to reclaim my dignity had transformed into something far bigger than I ever imagined. Readers from across the world wrote to me, sharing their own stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and healing. Somehow my pain had become a mirror for theirs. Yet as the book's success grew, so did my internal conflict. I knew I had closed the door on Sharon that night, but pieces of her still clung to me like old scars that refused to fade. It wasn't love anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was simply the heavy residue of years spent hopping for something that was never real. Meanwhile, Ruth became my constant. Every step I took forward, she was there. She handled my schedules, negotiated contracts, arranged interviews, and most importantly, stood beside me without ever asking for anything in return. Her presence was steady, warm, and familiar, a comfort I never truly allowed myself to embrace, not fully. Until one night. I had just returned from another international book tour. My name was now attached to best-selling lists, my face appearing in literary magazines and offers for speaking engagements piled higher than I could manage. It should have felt like triumph, but there was one interview that changed everything. A journalist, during a live segment, asked the question that pierced right through me. John, many readers connect with your vulnerability, but some wonder, have you healed from the betrayal that started all of this? I hesitated. For a moment, my mind flashed back to Sharon reading my letters, to the laughter, to her standing in my living room in tears. And then to Ruth. I haven't healed because someone apologized, I finally answered. I've healed because I stopped needing one. The interview went viral overnight, praised for its brutal honesty. But it wasn't until Ruth knocked on my door that night that the real confrontation unfolded. She stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee, her eyes scanning my face. I saw the interview, she said softly. You finally said it. I gave a small smile, taking the coffee from her. Yeah, I guess I did. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that holds more meaning than words ever could. And then Ruth set her cup down, her fingers nervously twisting the sleeve. John, she began, her voice trembling slightly, I've never pushed you. I never wanted to make you feel pressured. But I need to say something now, something I've been holding in for far too long. My chest tightened. I knew what was coming, and yet I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. You don't have to say it, Ruth, I whispered. I do, she insisted, her voice firm but gentle. Because you need to hear it, and I need to free myself from it. She took a deep breath. I love you, John. I've loved you long before you ever wrote those letters. I stayed in the background while you chased someone who never deserved you. And when you broke, I stood beside you, not because I pitied you, but because you've always been worth loving. You just never saw it. Her confession hung between us, raw and unfiltered. My throat tightened, my heart pounding harder than it had in months. I looked at her, really looked at the woman who had carried me through my darkest nights, who respected my silence and never once tried to steal my story. She wasn't my rebound. She wasn't my consolation. She was the woman I should have seen from the very beginning. But my voice wavered. "Ruth, after everything, I don't know if I deserve you." She smiled sadly, her eyes glistening. "That's not your decision to make. I'm telling you how I feel. Whether you're ready or not, that's up to you." Before I could respond, fate delivered one final confrontation I hadn't expected. The doorbell rang again. I opened it to find Smith standing there, a name I hadn't heard in years. He was once part of our shared circle back in college, but as Sharon and I drifted apart, so did our friendships. "John," he greeted, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk about Sharon." Ruth stood silently behind me, sensing the storm coming. I invited him in, though every part of me screamed to slam the door. Smith wasted no time. "She's spiraling, she lost everything, she's not doing well." "That's not my problem anymore," I said firmly. "She talks about you constantly," Smith continued. "She thinks if she apologizes properly, maybe you'll forgive her. She's convinced she can fix what's broken." "There's nothing to fix," I snapped. "She made her choices." Smith exhaled heavily, lowering his voice. "She was never who you thought she was, John. She always wanted the spotlight more than anything. But she also always knew you were better than the way she treated you." I narrowed my eyes. "And what exactly do you want me to do with that information?" Smith looked at me with something almost like pity. "I want you to know that you were never the fool, John. You were the only one who ever loved honestly. But Sharon's brokenness isn't yours to repair." For the first time, I truly felt the weight of it leave me. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need closure from her mouth. The real closure was already standing beside me. After Smith left, I returned to the living room where Ruth waited, her expression uncertain. "She'll always be part of your story," Ruth said softly, "but she doesn't have to be part of your future." I sat beside her, my hand reaching for hers. This time I didn't hesitate. "You've always been here," I whispered, "and I was too blind to see what was right in front of me, but I see you now." Her eyes welled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. "Are you sure?" she whispered. I smiled, my voice steady for the first time in years. "I've never been more sure of anything." And as we sat together, hands intertwined, I finally felt peace. 6 months later, everything had changed. The book had become an international phenomenon, translated into multiple languages, praised for its raw honesty and emotional depth. The world saw me as an author, not as a victim. I had turned the pain Sharon inflicted into something beautiful, something that touched millions. But the greatest change wasn't in my career, it was in my heart. Ruth and I had grown closer every day. What started as quiet support turned into something deeper, something I had never fully allowed myself to believe I could have. Real love, calm, steady, safe. She never tried to heal my wounds with grand gestures or hollow promises. Instead, she sat with me in my silence, walked beside me through my doubts, and waited patiently for me to fully open the door. And when I finally did, it was like taking my first breath after years underwater. We weren't just partners in work anymore. We were partners in life. One evening, as we sat together reviewing my next manuscript, I put my pen down and looked at her. "Ruth." She turned, her eyes always soft, always seeing me. "There's something I need to ask you." Her breath caught slightly, as if she already knew what was coming but didn't dare assume. I pulled the small box from my jacket pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple ring, not flashy, not loud, but elegant and perfect, just like her. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes instantly, and she nodded before words could form. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time in years, I felt completely whole. But life, of course, wasn't done with its final tests. The media couldn't resist reaching out to Sharon when the news of my engagement became public. Headlines filled the tabloids. John, the best-selling author, engaged to his editor, Ruth. Where is Sharon now? It was unavoidable. Her name would always linger in the shadows of my story, but I no longer flinched when I saw it. Then one day I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sharon. I opened it slowly, unsure what emotions might surface. Inside was a long apology. She poured her regrets onto the paper, admitting everything: her selfishness, her thirst for attention, her inability to understand love when it was offered freely. You deserved better, John. I see that now. You always did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. For a moment, I sat there, reading her words over and over. Years ago, I would have given anything to hear this. I would have clung to it like a starving man to bread. But now it was simply closure. Words on paper, nothing more. I placed the letter back into the envelope and tucked it away, not out of sentimentality, but as a final reminder that some things belong in the past. The ultimate revenge wasn't in seeing her suffer. The ultimate revenge was in living well, in finding happiness where she once created pain. She had destroyed herself with her own choices, and I had risen from the ashes of what she left behind. As our wedding day approached, Ruth and I decided to keep it private, intimate, just close family and friends. No press, no spectacle, only the people who mattered. Smith, surprisingly, attended. He had reached out months earlier to apologize for his silence during my humiliation. He admitted his guilt for standing by while Sharon mocked me. And though I hadn't fully forgiven him, I accepted his apology enough to let him witness my new beginning. On the day of the wedding, as Ruth walked down the aisle toward me, my heart swelled with a kind of happiness I never thought possible. She was breathtaking, not because of her dress, not because of the way the sunlight danced in her hair, but because of who she was: steady, true, mine. As we exchanged vows, I glanced briefly at the small group gathered around us. There was no Sharon. She was not invited, nor did I expect her to appear. Her chapter in my life was closed. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and as I kissed Ruth, the cheers of our friends and family echoed around us. But it was her smile that held me in that moment, the purest, most genuine thing I had ever seen. Later that night, as we stood on the balcony of our honeymoon suite, watching the stars scatter across the sky, Ruth leaned into me. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked softly. I thought for a moment: the years of pain, the humiliation, the betrayal, the long nights of doubt. And then I looked at her, the woman who stood beside me through it all. "No," I whispered, "because every wrong turn brought me here, to you." She smiled, her hand tightening around mine. "Then it was worth it." We stood in silence, the city lights twinkling below, the cool breeze wrapping around us like a gentle promise. And in that moment, I knew the story had finally reached its true ending. I hadn't just survived Sharon's betrayal. I had won